there's like so many people that anyway, mostly girls. I mean, everybody lives here. It's easier to get somebody local. They have it applied now.
I'm not from
Check this thing. Check this thing. It's on.
I'm guessing that you have it. Hey, I put in my sweat time, okay?
Yeah, we all lost it.
That's so the 20 process, you know? Really bad, but also probably helpful to them. Sweating every day, and moving all over.
Right, you're not eating junk because it's just so heavy, right?
Drinking water, yeah.
How long does it take you to get over?
Get over it? Sleeping was the worst. But my neighbor left on Wednesday.
Hey, are you the only editor?
Amazing how much of a difference the light breeze.
Yeah, that's the thing. Louisiana doesn't have a solar.
Are you not getting
Oh, it's hot. Yeah. I'm also
and did you take it?
her hair is just like so smooth, silky. I love how you're coming from her own child, so you can't.
Did you watch the first episode when Lonnie goes to the hospital?
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's neat.
Exactly.
Yeah, I lived in them for a while. My hair was just so nice. It's just, look at all the, there's nothing wrong. We just get it. You know, it was like that camera. I had that same camera for years, and even that same strap.
Really?
I still have it. I mean, I can't find it, but
So this is actually DSLR.
is it?
Yeah, it's this is a 70s vintage lens I got on here.
Oh,
It's actually
Wait a minute. You told me that.
physical dye.
I wonder if that. No, that's not one of them.
Yeah, that's why it's cool because they have these adapters. My film camera, so I can take that.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Which one? Someone which one? All right. All right. Thank you.
No, this is a
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's got all the hard dials, 26 megapixels, camera, but it's got a continuous lens. And it's got a EVF too, so it's electronic viewfinder, so it's tiny screen there. You can see so it's nice just being able to like.
All right, we're ready.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here again. I'll just be brief. I think you guys, heard me discuss what we've been doing at the press conference yesterday. I can give you some updates. I believe we're up to 32 facilities that we have gone and done a comprehensive evaluation on, to walk through buildings, in many cases gone door to door, opened every door and evaluated. the good news is that's slowing down. Today, I believe we only had 2 that we needed to go out and do, and so I hope that that's a sign of relief as power comes on, as living conditions become more comfortable. But again, we're continuing to do that. We have not found in today or yesterday any building that was in a condition that was an emergent threat to life or health that would require mandatory evacuation of individuals. So that's positive. We are continuing to check in with properties that we had been to, making sure that conditions have either improved or that they have everything that they need. And so again, our operations continue, but fortunately they seem to be slowing down a little bit. But the work of Peter Bowen and his team is just beginning, and that's the next phase of this. So I'll have Peter come and talk a little bit about that.
Peter, can you go ahead and give your name, obviously, and then your title with the city, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Doctor. Peter Bowen, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, the Office of Business and External Services. So as you've all heard, the Health Department very quickly and swiftly identified 32 buildings that needed to be assessed and provided support and relief to those residents that needed it most. Yesterday morning, my office activated a building evaluation strike team, which is a collaboration with our partners at the State Fire Marshal, our safety and permits, commercial building, mechanical, and electrical inspectors. And we are coming in right behind. So we obviously prioritized the buildings that did see a loss of life and the 9 that were closed by the Health Department. So far, as of this afternoon, we've finished 6 of those, and it is taking us quite a bit of time because we are deep diving. We are looking under every stone. The things that we're looking for, especially, are anything related to life safety. So we're looking for signs of problems and inspecting fire suppression, sprinkler systems, pumps. We're looking for anything that may be or may become a fire hazard. And again, anything mechanical, so all of the elevators. We're doing samples of several interior units on all of the floors, and obviously extensive exterior and roof inspections, just to make sure that any and all of these systems are operational or what needs to be done to get them operable. Obviously, the priority right now is these life safety issues so that we can get residents safely home. We've instructed the building management to coordinate with the State Fire Marshal on timelines and what they need to do to remedy these immediate life safety issues. Our building inspectors on the other side are looking at everything, and we have identified pretty significant deferred maintenance in all of these facilities. Lots of work done without permits, things that really it's just basic building management. It may take us a number of weeks to continue curing these items with the building owners, but again, these won't prevent folks from coming home, but these are issues that need to be addressed for these buildings to function and to provide quality housing to these residents. So our work will continue tomorrow and through probably next week as we try to identify all of the issues to get folks home. Thank you.
We can start with questions on the NWGNO.
I know y'all have been evaluating a lot of nursing homes, senior care type facilities. A lot of people that live in senior living apartments, though, have been reaching out to us saying that, hey, we don't have electricity, we can't get in touch with the building manager. What would your advice be to those people? I know they sort of fall under different guidelines because it's not a nursing home per se, but it is a senior care type facility.
I mean, the guidance.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I just want to make the distinction. What we've been doing and what Peter has been doing is actually going to those senior apartments. Nursing homes are licensed and regulated by the state, very, very different set of requirements. What we've discovered is the gap just at the facilities you're talking about. So those 32 plus that we've been to, they are privately owned and managed, elderly and vulnerable population, independent apartments, many, if not all of them, with some kind of federal subsidy to operate. Peter, do you have anything? Yeah.
No, that's the important distinction to make, right, is that all of these facilities are in that gap, and we're definitely very motivated to understand how to close that gap moving forward. And this is a priority for my office beyond the storm. We had already begun in the wake of the collapse in Surfside, starting a program to recertify all of our commercial buildings. And so this is kind of that pilot for us to really refine that checklist. And over the coming years, we need to re-inspect every commercial building in this city to make sure that no tragedy ever happens again.
Next question, panel 6.
It just when it comes to the 9 apartment facilities that were closed, do you have any updates on the citizens? Like, is everybody okay? If you could kind of just describe the conditions that you saw from those specific apartment facilities.
Last I'd heard, all the residents that had been relocated are safe in state shelters or with family. Certainly by the time we arrived, some of them had power back and were quickly trying to clean up. So mostly what we were seeing, again, was just deferred maintenance, right? One building, for example, the pump room door had been painted shut, right? Clearly no one had been inside to check on the pump system in quite a while. So it's mostly those things that we're seeing and looking for.
And just one more question. It looks like the Louisiana Department of Health revoked the licenses of 7 nursing homes. I know you guys are talking about apartment complexes, but just given, there's 2 of them that are here in Orleans Parish. Is that something that you guys are kind of is that what you guys are doing, like investigating? Could it lead to?
So we absolutely have activated our legal resources in the Office of Code Enforcement and Safety and Permits. We're documenting everything we find, and yes, it's quite possible that some of what we find may turn into administrative adjudications, fines, issues with occupational license in the future. That's the next step. Once we get folks safely home, once we get these buildings remedied, the city will definitely be pursuing any action we can to make sure this never happens.
Dr. Vegna, did you want to follow up on what you said?
No, I think that's okay. WW went on.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could maybe explain kind of how we got here, because it seemed like LDH today explained that these places, the nursing homes specifically, had evacuation plans, and they just didn't follow those plans or didn't follow whatever codes they were supposed to follow. So I'm wondering, did these apartments, were they under guidelines to report issues in these facilities and just didn't do it, and there was no checking in on them? Or what did they do basically that got to this point, and how were y'all involved in that?
Right, so focusing on the nursing homes, again, they're learning the lessons from past disasters, right, as we always should, because to repeat a tragedy is inexcusable. Nursing homes have much tighter restrictions now and regulations in terms of emergency plans. So whether that's generators, whether that's having an evacuation plan that has to be approved by the Louisiana Department of Health. That has worked very well for the majority of our nursing homes. Whether it's the state, and we have some additional regulations in terms of generators in New Orleans. We know who needs fuel, what kind of generators they have, and have been easily able to address those nursing homes needs that are here in New Orleans and that stayed during the storm. That worked as it's supposed to. What happened with those 7 nursing homes that went to Independence is that they had a plan, and the plan on paper was reviewed and found to be appropriate. However, the plan on paper was not what happened. And when inspectors from LDH started hearing reports really immediately after the storm, they did, similar to what we did, deploy on scene, and when they saw the conditions there were not what was in the approved plan, they took immediate actions, as they should have. That never should have happened. If you have a plan and you don't stick to the plan, or if you have a plan and you stick to the plan, then that's going to mitigate issues. The facilities that we're talking about here do not have the same licensing requirements or regulations. And so because of that, there's no real standard that says everyone in this type of facility has to have this type of oversight, accountability, and plan for a disaster. That's the policy gap that we at the city, this administration, city council, and state, probably federal partners as well, are going to look to address. What are the commonalities that would create a standard of care for residents in these types of buildings?
I have a follow-up to that, if that's okay. 2 quick follow-ups.
Sure.
So you had mentioned that you learned from past mistakes, so I'm wondering if this was not an issue that had already come up with other hurricanes like Katrina or even Laura, about looking at these apartment complexes, seeing that there was a lack of code that was available to make sure that these people were going to be okay. Why do you think something like that didn't come up before? And then the second part of that question is, so what is the recourse then? Because those nursing home facilities have their licenses taken away, but if there's no law, what's going to happen?
That question I don't know. I can't answer because I think we're still figuring out exactly what the conditions were. Certainly we're going to look to see where they're, that's what Peter's team is doing. Is there anything structurally or in terms of the building that really should have been addressed beforehand? And as he said, that might go through adjudication. I can't speak to what happened during Katrina with these particular facilities. We have at the health department and on our radar these facilities, and we keep in touch regularly during disasters. We did for Zeta, again, not sure what the need really was in Gustav or Isaac, but this is the first big test since Katrina. And so I don't think we had fully understood how great the gap was. Again, we must learn that lesson. And when I say we, I am taking, ownership, for our part as well, to recognize that there's got to be a different standard so that we don't repeat this again.
Next question, Foxy.
And this is a question probably for Mr. Bowen. These 32 facilities that you guys have been going in and inspecting, have they been previously inspected, or is this kind of the first time, or is there other opportunities to inspect these buildings and requirements?
So what we're finding is, when I mentioned deferred maintenance, right, this is the responsibility of the property management company, right? So the city would have inspected on construction and issued certificates of occupancy and things like that. I also mentioned work without permits, right? So if folks are doing things on the property and not applying for the appropriate permits, we don't know about it. And so there would not have been an opportunity for the city to inspect these things. Typically buildings have a very clear, every piece of equipment has a preventative maintenance plan that should be followed either, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is. And if property management is not doing those things, we're not aware of it.
Last question from Mike McDaniel.
Councilwoman Palmer is introducing proposals to make sure that these senior living facilities are brought up to a higher standard, to be kind of follow the purview that nursing homes are, including things like generator power backup and annual inspections. And you talk about the gap that we didn't know was so big. Do you think that something like that will help close that gap and make this to a point where this won't happen again? I don't know if you've seen the proposal.
I haven't seen it, but again, that's what we're looking to do is what can we do for this category of buildings, category of residences, to have a higher standard that would prevent the tragedy we've seen here. I have not seen her specifics.
And the last question, I'm sorry, from Jeff right here.
Dr. Regno, in Jefferson Parish, they made contact with their subsidized senior apartments. There are only 2 there on Monday, and they had those buildings evacuated by Tuesday morning. They then evacuated several other buildings over the course of the week. When was the first time you all made contact with management? When was the first time you were on the ground, and when was the decision made to actually get people out of there? And also, are there any plans in place for what to do about these buildings after a storm?
Well, yeah, that's what we're talking about, right, is making a standard by which we would know exactly what they should or should not do. We made contact with several of these facilities before, during, and immediately after the storm, just checking to see, just basically checking up, right? So Saturday, Monday, some basic needs were identified. We got a message saying, oh, we need food and water at this particular facility, so we connected them with the folks that were doing food and water, got them there. Tuesday or Wednesday, I would say, and I'm sorry, Jeff, my memory is failing me, was when we were having challenges, either challenges communicating, or we were starting to hear that maybe there were greater needs that were not being provided to us. And so that's when we realized we probably needed to have eyes on the ground and go there directly. And I believe those first visits started either Wednesday or Thursday and then really escalated from there. I would say Jefferson Parish, is a little bit of a different situation because not only did they not have power, but they did not have water. It's a lot easier to say, well, you know, there's no ability to do anything if you know you're going to be out of power and water for a foreseeable amount of time. Power outages are significant, and we knew they were significant. It was a little challenging trying to get a timeline for restoration that guides the decision as well. But we made contact with several of them before the storm and continued during the storm, and then, you know, directly probably midweek last week.
Was there a concern about, I mean, we were being told by Entergy Monday that you were going to have power for a week or more, especially when you're dealing with high rises and vulnerable populations.
Yep.
Wasn't there a concern for people who might be stuck in these buildings in the heat with medical conditions?
Right. There's a great concern for that. And again, that's why we reached out before and immediately there and started making plans for if we needed to evacuate, getting the state buses and all of the logistics that go along with that. Remember, the state doesn't shelter in Region 1. Sheltering is a state responsibility. So that wasn't going to be an option. So we are always sort of looking to the next step and having that prepared, and trying to work with which facilities did have generators, because several of these facilities did have generators. So which did have some ability to have power and cooling and get people in and out. It's a large universe of these buildings. And so trying to figure out each one and the specific needs, and then also relying on the building managers to tell us what they needed. You know, if we're being told all we need is water and food, and we can deliver that, then, you know, that's not helpful for us to understand if the need is greater than that.
Just when it comes to the 32 apartment facilities, did you guys receive reports from citizens about them? I'm just curious in finding out how you found out about
Right. So some, again, we decided to start going to, and then some we were receiving reports of this one. And really they all started to coalesce. The ones that we started to go to first were the ones that we were concurrently receiving a good number of reports to. So we were able to ground truth that when we went and visited them in person.
And how many facilities have been closed so far? And then also how many deaths? I know we
Right.
reported on 5.
Yeah, it's, as far as we are aware, it's still 5 deaths. A total of 9 facilities closed since Thursday or whenever we started, but a larger number of that we've been to.
Thank you, guys. That concludes the press conference.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
simple question? Y'all are talking about 9 facilities, you're counting Nazareth in 1 and 2 as a single facility? We're just trying to, the numbers.
I don't want, the dates are,
I understand.
either Wednesday or Thursday, and I cannot
One of the
remember
press
which.
releases is 10 and 9.
Expecting different, expected 2 more.
Yeah.
Health officials had a very different view, saying the conditions at the warehouse turned dire, as you can see in this exclusive video obtained by Channel 4 today, showing the floodwater swamping those mattresses that were on the floor.
Like, what kind of person would think in their right mind to store over 800 people in a warehouse? And these are not healthy people. These are people that are sick.
In announcing these shutdowns, the Louisiana Department of Health said the company failed to reach out to the state for help and at one point even blocked inspectors from the building, subjecting them to, quote, intimidation. We're also learning disturbing details about what it was like for hundreds of nursing home patients stuck in that warehouse. 7 of those patients, as we said, died.
Well, Eyewitness News got the 911 call logs that were made from inside that facility. Jade Cunningham tells us some of those urgent calls.
Breathing problems, combative patients, and accusations of starvation and worker mistreatment. These are just some of the dozens of 911 calls made from a warehouse in Independence. The facility housed more than 800 senior citizens who'd been evacuated from 7 different nursing homes in southeast Louisiana before Hurricane Ida. Logs show between Friday, August 27th to the day it shut down on Thursday, September 2nd, more than 50 911 calls were made from patients and workers begging for help. The first call came Friday, August 27th, shortly before 5 p.m. A person reported a patient was having trouble breathing. This would start a lengthy string of phone calls that only became more dire as the days passed. August 29th, the day Ida made landfall, someone called reporting a patient with a weak pulse not responding properly. 3 minutes later, another call came advising there were now 2 patients unresponsive. August 30th, the next day, documents show dispatch took a call for a possible death already reported several times. Conditions continued to deteriorate over the next 3 days. One call came reporting a brittle diabetic who hadn't eaten because there were no more supplies. They said the person was having seizures. Another came from a patient calling to report mistreatment, that he was covered in feces and people were standing around laughing. That was one of the final calls made before authorities came and got the patients out, ending a horrifying week, which resulted in the deaths of at least 7. Jade Cunningham, Eyewitness News.
Horrifying indeed. Patients were taken to shelters all around Louisiana. About 100 were taken to the field house in LSU's campus, and dozens were hospitalized after they left the warehouse.
And right after the emergency evacuation of the warehouse by state officials, both the Attorney General's office and local law enforcement officials said that they have launched criminal investigations into the company for its treatment of the patients during the crisis. Of course, also, Sharice, there was federal Medicaid and Medicare dollars involved, so presumably the feds will also be looking into it in some form or fashion.
It was certainly not the last time we hear about this investigation. It is only just beginning. Well, we turn now to the power picture, and things are thankfully looking a bit brighter.
But there are still hundreds of thousands of people in the metro area without power, and it'll stay that way for some time. Entergy says that in Terrebonne and Lafourche, it could be September 29th, a month after the storm, before power comes back. But of course, some of those areas just devastated. And in the meantime, crews are busy at work in Orleans and Jefferson Parish. Entergy officials say they expect both parishes to have 90% of their lights back on by tomorrow. And there's a glimmer of hope in St. John today. We're told parts of Laplace have power again. And there could be some good news coming in for Lafourche as Thibodaux Regional Medical Center gets power again as well.
When we get that hospital on, turns out there's some apartments nearby right there at Nichols that we'll be able to get on as well. We'll get some other areas on. So if you live near the fire station, near the water treatment plant, you'll probably see your lights get on early.
Entergy says crews will move into those hardest hit areas as their work in the city wraps up.
Well, parts of Plaquemines Parish are still under a mandatory evacuation as the parish continues to deal with the flooding there.
Some areas are having to get food sent into communities where residents have not evacuated. Candace Charles joins us live from Plaquemines Parish with the latest on the efforts to help. Candace.
Yes, Myrtle Grove is just one of those communities dealing with extensive flooding. Thankfully, there aren't that many people still left here. You can kind of see this road here right next to these homes. Lots of water in the road. And if you go a little bit further down the road, as you get down the road, it gets deeper and deeper. There's currently a mandatory evacuation from Alliance Floodgate down the West Bank. The East Bank is also under a mandatory evacuation, but that's due to lack of resources. The parish president told me this afternoon he plans to lift that order soon afternoon, with power and water being restored to parts of the East Bank. But here in the West, as you can see, water continues to fill up roads and yards, making it difficult to get to residents who have not evacuated.
They're trying to get resources, and we tell them, look, we'll bring them food and MREs, and if it's a dire need, we will evacuate those people. Now, some people have this thing about staying in their home and protecting their animals, and we get it, but it's not going to drain our resources. And I want the public to know that I'm not going to risk someone else. If you want to stay, we will evacuate you to a safe area.
Earlier today, I did speak to a deputy coming back from Lake Hermitage who was actually going over there to bring some food, but he had an airboat attached to his vehicle. So that was the only way he was able to get down there. He said that there's about 5 or 6 residents down there that do have boats on their own, but don't have enough gas and really just don't want to leave. So they'll continue to go down there and bring them resources. And here in Myrtle Grove, most people are gone. They have come back to start to look at some of the damage and see how they can make those repairs. Now, of course, you can find out more information about what's going on in Plaquemines Parish, as well as points of distribution that food, water, MREs, things you may need to survive down here, by going to their Facebook page. For now, in Plaquemines Parish, I'm Candace Charles, Eyewitness News.
All right, that community, the very definition of resilience. Thanks very much, Candace. We're going to have a lot more on the Ida recovery effort coming up.
And we're tracking some bad news with the COVID pandemic and a warning from a local coroner about how dire the situation has become. We'll be right back.
Some places that did not suffer severe damage from Ida are trying to get back to something like normal.
Yes, something like it. In fact, one site that has been offering storm victims aid is closing up. Jaleesa Garza joins us now live from Slidell with a closer look.
That's right. A sense of normalcy is slowly returning here in Slidell. The National Guard just wrapping up their last distribution site here at Fritchie Park on Howsey Beach Road. They say that today over 700 cars came by, and when we were here on Saturday, over 1,000 cars were served. And throughout Slidell, when we were driving today, we did see streetlights on and more places open. like I mentioned right now, driving throughout Slidell, you can see gas stations open with really no long lines, food places open with a little bit of longer lines, people trying to just get a hot meal. And then also we did see a few grocery stores open as well. We talked to a few people who were getting their groceries, and they say that the shelves aren't fully stocked, but that they're feeling hopeful and glad that things are getting better. And we also, when we got to the distribution site, we were able to talk to the National Guard, and they told us that it felt good to be able to help residents throughout the community during these difficult times. And they also said that it feels good to see more places open, more places for people to get gas, to get food, to get all of the supplies that they need. We also got a chance to speak to the last person who was in the distribution line, and he told me he was thankful that he made it right on time and that he's also hopeful for the future. And everyone we spoke to today throughout Slidell just in good spirits and continuing to push forward. For now, reporting live, Jalissa Garza, Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you very much for the update. Hurricane Ida also damaged an old pipeline leading to an oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico.
Something we definitely don't want to hear. The company overseeing the response says they now have a containment dome in place to catch that oil. Houston-based Talos Energy said in a statement that its oil spill response contractor installed the containment dome last night. It doesn't stop the leak, but it does allow them to collect the oil. Talos says it does not own the pipeline near Port Fourchon that is believed to be the source of that spill. So far, the spill appears to have remained out to sea and has not affected the Louisiana shoreline. So there is not yet any estimate for how much oil was in the water. The Coast Guard says it is monitoring that situation.
And a number of scattered showers around the area, many of which are starting to wind down or beginning to push out of our area. Around the metro region, we are starting to finally dry out. Have a few little isolated pop-up showers and can't rule out a few more little sprinkles here and there through the evening and maybe even into later tonight. But some of the heavier storms are now pushing a little bit farther upriver as well as in the bayou parishes, but now moving a little more west of Thibodaux, though still some thunderstorms right over Thibodaux and Houma and drying out on the North Shore and in southern Mississippi. So the scattered rain that we had around today, some isolated downpours, picked up about a half-inch of rain at downtown, and we were closing in on an inch of rain at Slidell. Didn't pick up anything measurable at Kenner, only 0.03 of an inch at Reserve. Rain coverage is about 50% today. We'll probably see that decrease to around 30% tomorrow, and then zero as we get into Thursday, and we need the drier weather, and not just in terms of drying out from rain, but also turning less humid. It will feel more comfortable, and it's not going to be as dangerous, to be honest. A lot of folks still out without air conditioning, so no way to cool off, and on top of that, you're overexerting yourself outdoors. And with that, more heat illnesses are becoming a bit all too common. With the humidity coming down, that allows the sweat to evaporate, and that is how your body cools itself off. So it'll actually be not quite as dangerous to be outside for a length of time as we get toward the end of the week, because right now 83 degrees and with the dew point even low at 72, it feels more like the upper 80s, but with those heat indices getting into the upper 90s, triple digits, low triple digits, which is normal for this time of year, as are these temperatures. It's a little more extreme because folks are now outdoors and without the source of air conditioning. So another heat advisory will be in effect, even in the areas that you may not see highlighted. Certainly use some caution. Still, the reason that some areas are not highlighted per the National Weather Service is those are the areas that are starting to get power back and should be a little bit more able to receive power by tomorrow. So fewer storms on the way tomorrow, but also another hot day, but less humid and just a better feel by Thursday. We are still watching that area in the Gulf, but right now it does not look like it is going to threaten us at all. An upper trough is starting to dive in from the northern states, and what this is going to help to do is bring down that drier air, but also anything in the tropics, whether or not that tries to become Mindy, is going to get moved away from us. But this upper pattern favors that drier air and also kind of puts a block on anything that were to threaten from the Gulf Coast or for the Gulf of Mexico or in the tropics, which there isn't anything beyond Invest 91. Our drier air starts moving in. By Thursday morning, we'll start to feel the difference, and then just gradually getting nicer as we head into Friday and Saturday. So very pleasant as we wrap up the week and head into the weekend. I know I'm going to be outside this weekend doing a lot of cleaning up, and at least the weather is cooperating. For now, it's still early September, and we know the muggies are going to be coming back. So some spotty showers during the day tomorrow. Front moves in. Again, as our tropical system tries to get better organized, it is going to get picked up and move toward the east. So we are not at threat for that system. Watching it a little bit closer only because the Hurricane Center has started to elevate that percent chance of developing in the next couple of days, and it certainly looks a little bit better organized, at least in terms of the thunderstorms trying to develop around some sort of more centralized location as opposed to yesterday's storms just all over the place. Again, if we do see it organizing, it would be off the mouth of the river but moving away from us, not toward us, and it would likely be a fairly weak system. Depression, maybe a storm. Next name up on the list after we are done with Larry, which is a major hurricane, would be Mindy. Again, Mindy is not going to threaten us. 91 degrees our high tomorrow, then that drier air moves in. Looks like it's going to stick with us through the weekend, and then the muggies start to make a comeback into early next week.
Well, with all the devastation we're seeing in the aftermath of Ida, it can be very easy to forget we're still in the middle of a pandemic.
And we got a clear reminder of that today from the St. Tammany Parish Coroner.
This is happening in the face of the COVID pandemic. And as I mentioned, we brought a number of bodies to the coroner's office from outlying hospitals, and their morgues were full, and they were full of COVID fatalities. This pandemic is just as real and just as virulent as it has ever been, and I anticipate that we will see a spike in cases as people had to gather together for safety in congregate shelters and not be able to completely observe all of the mitigation measures. Again, that is something that I have not seen yet, but I would not be surprised if that happens over the next couple of weeks.
And it's been a few days since numbers were released because of the Labor Day holiday, but since Friday, more than 5,500 new cases were reported and 72 new deaths. However, the people in the hospital and the number of people on ventilators fell.
Yeah, we know you are all dealing with a lot right now, and the safety precautions that we've taken to fight COVID, it can sometimes go out the window, but it's very important to remember to wear a mask and to take social distancing steps as much as possible.
All right, first responders have been working non-stop to help Louisiana recover after Hurricane Ida.
And today, Governor Edwards said he's focused on making sure those men and women don't have to worry about having a place to stay.
In order to help with restoration and other things, I signed a proclamation yesterday in an effort to assist hotels across the state in housing first responders, essential healthcare employees, and utility workers who are restoring critical infrastructure in the state so that their rooms are protected, so that they get to stay in their rooms rather than being put out so that those hotels have to honor any reservations that they had taken previous to the storm. Our number one priority right now is recovering from the storm. Obviously, we can't do that if the first responders and critical workers don't have a place to stay. And they have graciously come here, literally from all over the country. And we want to work with them to make sure that they have a place to stay that is safe and comfortable so that they can do their best work to restore power and to deliver the services and the goods that are necessary to assist all of the Louisianans in need today.
And we'll be right back.
From WWL-TV, this is continuing coverage of the Hurricane Ida aftermath.
Well, if you stayed for Ida or if you've made it back to town, you've certainly noticed the smell.
Yeah, we were having garbage pickup problems in New Orleans before the storm, and with all the extra trash and the lack of garbage workers, well, things are not moving quickly right now.
Especially in the French Quarter. Officials say the French Quarter usually takes 2 hours to clean. Yesterday, it took 9 hours. Here's the New Orleans Deputy Chief of Infrastructure with some details on how that process should play out.
All of your household waste, the stuff that's putrid, rotting, liquid, put that into your 95-gallon city can. We are no longer talking about normal service operations. So if you're a Thursday pickup or a Friday pickup, just disregard it, because we're picking it up as quickly and as rapidly as we can, given limited staffing, limited power to our trash operators. Put it all in your can, put it out on the curb, and we're working to get it. We're right now initiating this morning work to get some contracted assistance for household waste pickup. So we'll have some help on that as soon as possible. On debris, today's the first day that we are collecting debris throughout the city. There's going to be 3 passes, what we call, where those trucks drive around picking up debris. This is probably going to exceed a month into the range of weeks to maybe months. There's a tremendous amount of debris throughout this city, men and women from Parks and Parkway Sanitation, DPW, and our contracted firms are out there pushing that debris out of the right-of-way, and today is the first day when we're picking it up and taking it away.
I cannot imagine what those trash collectors are enduring. Just know that you are our heroes, and thank you very much. Some students in the metro area can start returning to school next week. The New Orleans public school system announced today it'll begin welcoming students back starting September 15th through September 22nd. Officials say that timeline will depend on the return of power to its buildings, teachers and staff and bus drivers, among other critical needs. And they say that of the 88 schools in the system, 22 were damaged. As for schools in more heavily affected parishes, well, of course, the timeline for their reopening is unclear.
It is not an easy process to make that selection, and a lot goes into that consideration of when you can reopen, because you want to make sure once you give the public a date that you're confident in your ability to meet that deadline.
An estimated 250,000 Louisiana students are out of school because of the storm, and so far, timelines for the reopening of schools in parishes like Jefferson, Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. Charles, and St. John have not been announced. Now, across the U.S., there is concern the surge of COVID cases is going to spike even more with so many people traveling over the Labor Day weekend. And this, of course, comes as hospitals in many parts of the country are overwhelmed with unvaccinated patients. CBS's Deborah Alfarone reports from Washington.
Public health officials are bracing for another possible COVID-19 surge. TSA officers screened more than 5.3 million passengers over the long Labor Day holiday, despite CDC warnings, especially for the unvaccinated, to stay home.
If there were a lot of people who were unvaccinated that were traveling and they didn't wear masks, they didn't use appropriate social distancing, and they weren't washing their hands, we could see a lot more disease activity in the coming weeks.
Last week, the U.S. averaged more than 150,000 new COVID cases and more than 12,000 new hospital admissions. 53% of the total population is fully vaccinated, leaving just under half unprotected.
The risk of infection, just infection itself or serious infection, is so much higher with people who are unvaccinated.
Hospitals are stretched thin. A Washington Post tracker finds that the number of hospitalized COVID patients has more than doubled since last Labor Day.
Rural hospitals are especially struggling.
Of 20 patients in the hospital, only 1 does not have COVID.
Dr. Hassan Kakli works at El Campo Memorial Hospital in Texas. He says wait times in the ER are unprecedented.
You would never see 4 digits on minutes since checked in. We're 4 digits on the thousands of minutes.
And a last resort move in northern Idaho, where facilities can no longer handle COVID patients. Crisis standards of care are in effect, allowing hospitals to allocate resources to the patients most likely to survive. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
And officials are also monitoring another COVID variant, the Mu variant, to see how transmissible it is and whether the current vaccines stand up against it well.
Well, we'll be right back with more coverage of the aftermath of Hurricane Ida.
Today, President Biden visited more victims of Hurricane Ida, this time on the East Coast in New York and in New Jersey.
Well, President Biden approved major disaster declarations for 6 New Jersey and 5 New York counties affected by the remnants of Hurricane Ida. Some people say they were caught off guard by the storm and the devastating flooding we all saw on social media. Listen to this conversation the president had with a woman in New Jersey. Now, she actually considered staying in her home during the storm, but it was ripped apart by Ida.
Our plan was to come back once the water had gone down. Our daughter's nursery is on the 2nd floor.
And it's over there, another corner.
Yeah, half of her nursery, the wall is back there, and the other half of her nursery is down the street. And our plan was to go in and save her belongings, but unfortunately, probably around 2:30, 3 o'clock Thursday, the house was on fire.
Thank God you didn't come back.
Yeah, thank God we were not near the house. Nobody in the area was able to come back yet because it was still, the waters were so high. So we're extremely grateful that we were able to, all of us in the community, we were all able to not be here when this happened. So we're very grateful.
Do you feel like you got a good enough warning to your neighbors about what was coming and what could happen?
We just kind of thought it was going to be a heavy rainstorm. We had kind of been tracking a little bit to see how high the water was rising, but we've lived here for 4 years and we've never experienced a flood, so us personally, we didn't know what to expect. But we only just left early just because we had a baby. We didn't know.
Well, it's a good thing they did leave. With so much damage, many say it's time for Congress to pass pending infrastructure legislation to help communities deal with disasters and severe weather. The $1 trillion infrastructure bill pending in Congress will modernize roads, bridges, and sewers and drainage systems to make communities better able to withstand powerful storms.
Well, crews are in Grand Isle where cleanup efforts are finally ramping up.
Yeah, it's a big task, and they're trying to tackle is to clear the roads so crews can reach the broken power poles and damaged homes and businesses. Asha Staples has a closer look.
It is definitely going to be a long road ahead for the folks in Lower Jefferson Parish as they continue to assess the damage left behind by Hurricane Ida. Now, we were able to make it down to the island on yesterday. This is video of a tour we were taken on. Some camps which were built under stricter building codes held up remarkably well against the Category 4 storm. Others have been reduced to just a shell. It is estimated that every building on the island suffered damage. 40% were wiped clean and 40% of the remaining structures will have to be demolished. Parish President Cynthia Lee Shang says she's thankful for the help to the parish thus far, and slowly but surely there's progress.
Happy to say and thank the National Guard for clearing about 1.5 miles of sand off the road in Grand Isle. There were numerous front-end loaders and trucks and equipment operated also by DOTD to start clearing the island roads so we can move forward. Access is still restricted to the island, though.
And while there's some planning to rebuild, some are wondering how many neighbors will do the same. Again, it's going to be a very long time for the rebuilding process, but of course we'll continue to follow the story, bring you the latest. Reporting in Jefferson Parish, Asha Staples, Eyewitness News.
We also have a new look at the recovery efforts in Barateria. A JP council member sent us this. Crews are opening up a parish levee to help floodwater drain faster, and they're going to replace it when the water level has equalized.
Well, Second Harvest Food Bank is feeding people in the wake of Ida.
And they're getting help from businesses as well as people in the community. Duke Carter spent the morning there.
The owner of Maple Street Patisserie donated thousands of baked goods, and the executive chef at Second Harvest Food Bank is grateful that those people will have at least something else to eat.
Vicky Shakowski owns Maple Street Patisserie.
He's preparing to donate a lot of pastries to Second Harvest Food Bank.
We do danishes, turnovers, cookies, croissants, almond croissants. We do dessert pastry.
Chachowski and his wife Patricia Ann Donahue experienced a power outage during the height of Hurricane Ida. So to prevent the food from going bad, they want to make sure it's given to the right nonprofit in the area. The company, as of Friday, donated 26,000 dinner rolls.
Well, Louisiana is a very unique community, and everybody's always pulling together to help one another. Only Louisiana can do that.
But that donation, that was a big donation. Actually serving some of that stuff today.
Matthew Taylor is the executive chef at Second Harvest Food Bank, and he's pleased to receive the donation that will help feed as many people as possible.
Knowing I'm able to give back to people that may be in need, you know, I watch y'all stories, just to see the people that we're feeding, how it's impacting them, people who haven't had hot meal in days. It's just, you know, we all can look at our situation, but I feel good knowing that we, you know, the little we can do.
Which came from businesses willing to give their food supply to help others who may need a fresh meal.
We'll continue to donate until all baked goods until our resources run out.
Now, the executive chef, again, is pleased to see businesses donating to help people who just need a meal, especially in these troubling times. For now, though, reporting, Duke Carter, Eyewitness News.
All right, we'll be right back.
And we're starting to settle down this evening as the sun is going down. We're starting to lose that energy for those showers and storms. Still a bit of activity, but now starting to move a little bit more off to our west, drying out around the city. And that's not to say we won't see any other isolated showers here and there through the next few hours, but for the most part, rain is just about done. Still a few scattered showers, a couple of isolated little downpours, which are weakening in the bayou parishes as you head upriver. And then on the north shore, mostly quiet, as well as along the Mississippi coast. Rain Rainfall today, coverage-wise, was around 50% or so, and some areas got a decent little soaking. Almost an inch of rain at Slidell. Just picked up about a trace at Belle Chase. Nothing officially at Kenner, but downtown had a half inch of rainfall and about 3/100 of an inch over in Reserve. As I said, most of that rainfall ending in a quiet night. Rain coverage tomorrow. Again, today was around 50%. Tomorrow, about 30%. So fewer showers and more of a chance to heat up. And we still heated up during the day today as our high got up to 90 degrees. Briefly, 83 our current temperature, and temperatures across the area are in the 70s and 80s. As the sun is going down, we'll likely cool off into the 70s, although I wouldn't call that very cool, but cooler weather is on the way. It is going to be hot again, and what you see highlighted from the National Weather Service, I'm not exactly sure whether or not including Terrebonne, is because of heat-related illnesses due to the fact that this is an area primarily without power again tomorrow. And with those temperatures, heat indices getting into the 90s to triple digits, you need to use caution. Again, not entirely sure why they're not including Terrebonne Parish right now, but also even if you're not in the highlighted area, just use caution. A lot of folks are overexerting themselves in the cleanup and rebuilding process. Fewer storms tomorrow, which is good and bad. Doesn't cool us off, but also allows for things to just keep moving. With the energy crews, there's a thunderstorm nearby. They shut down those operations. It will turn less humid though on Thursday, so it'll start feeling nicer. And we are watching the Gulf, but not a threat to us. We'll talk about that in a second. Really what's happening is a bit of a pattern shift. We're now looking up north, not out to the south and east, but up north for an upper trough that is going to bring down that drier air. What it's also going to help to do is kind of pick up Invest 91, or maybe by tomorrow it is Mindy. Either way, that system is moving away from us. And with this drier air moving in, that kind of creates a tropical block and nothing can come our way. Not that there is anything threatening, but it's kind of the pattern you want to be in during the peak of hurricane season, which again, we're not done with just yet. The drier air starts moving in, kind of giving us a little taste of fall, especially by Friday and Saturday when the dew points drop into the 50s. That for early September will be a good feel air mass that does look to hang around for the entire weekend. So some spotty showers tomorrow. As the front starts to approach, here comes 91, or Mindy maybe at this point. It is going to be moving away from us, and any associated moisture with it will also be moving away from us. And really the only reason we're kind of keeping a closer watch on it is because the Hurricane Center is now highlighting the fact that we could see it develop either south of the Louisiana coastline, east of us, or maybe not until it moves toward the Panhandle or Big Bend area of Florida, as the models have started to become a little bit more aggressive with developing something. Whether that's a depression or a storm is yet to be seen. But there is certainly better thunderstorm development and around a more localized area as opposed to yesterday when it was just a big rainfall mess. Notice the models trying to, this is the GFS, trying to develop something off the mouth of the river, but don't let that scare you. It is moving away from us. And again, as maybe an organized system toward the Panhandle somewhere along Florida's coast as it moves generally quickly to across Georgia, maybe northern Florida, and then out in the Atlantic. And there was a concern, I'd posted a graphic kind of joking, Saints are moving to Jacksonville and something that could be trying to develop over that area. Notice by Thursday, that system, whether it's Mindy or just a tropical wave, is already in the Atlantic and moving away from Jacksonville. And by the way, as I mentioned, the next name up would be Mindy, the M storm in early September. It's been an active season and likely to continue, but we may start to see things settle down a bit coming in the next couple of weeks. 30% chance of rain, hot and humid. That drier air starts moving in by Thursday, and that good feel air will take us into the start and probably end of the weekend.
Well, as expected, LSU dropped out of the AP Top 25 poll after Saturday's loss to UCLA, and the hits keep coming for the Tigers. Ed Orgeron announcing 3 starters will not be available against McNeese State. Those include left tackle Cam Wire, right tackle Austin Deculus, and defensive end Ollie Gay, which is a big area of concern as LSU not only struggled running the ball, but defending the run as well. In response, Ed Orgeron plans to add more variety of runs in practice this week to help the offensive line. And speaking of the run game, John Emery Jr.'s status is still unknown. The running back missed game 1 because of academic issues. With both Wire and Deculus out, Coach O says it's next man up.
Yeah, you know, guys are going to have to step up. You know, Charles would have to step up. Anthony Bradford step up. Chason Hines a little bit beat up. He's going to have to step up. We're going to have to play some young guys. We're going to mix and match and see what's the best thing for our team.
Important for those younger players to step up with backup DN Sony Fanua and former Lutcher receiver John Trey Kirkland also out for Saturday night in Death Valley. And it's not just the offensive line making corrections in this afternoon's practice, but the secondary as well after struggling to defend crossing routes, much like they did last season.
We came up with some drills to help our guys cover the certain crossing routes that we've seen. We had seen some different stuff that they hadn't seen. We saw some different stuff that we hadn't showed them in practice. So that's coaching. And so I think we fixed that. We made a couple of adjustments, a couple of calls that when they get in a couple of formations, that we can take the heat off of the crossing routes. So I know we made some adjustments this week.
Can get those things corrected before being back home at Tiger Stadium taking on McNeese State. That's it for sports. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Well, as we've seen, thousands of our friends, neighbors, and family are in need of food, water, and shelter in the wake of Hurricane Ida. WWL-TV is partnering with the United Way of Southeast Louisiana to make sure people in Jefferson, Orleans, Plaquemines, St. Bernard, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, and Washington parishes get the help they need. so you can donate money or time, but United Way also needs immediate donations for their North Shore and South Shore drop-off locations.
All right, so what they need now is water, sports drinks, baby formula and supplies like diapers and wipes, toiletries like soap and toothpaste, sanitary napkins, tampons, deodorant. In addition, they are looking for cleaning and rebuilding supplies like tarps and hand tools, scrub brushes, plastic bags, work gloves, etc. But what they are not accepting at this point are donations of food or clothing. To find the exact drop-off locations or for more detailed lists of donatable items, you can scan the QR code on your screen now or go to www.unitedwaysela.org/Ida Relief.
Well, thank you so much for watching this extended coverage of the Eyewitness News at 6.
Now, there's going to be a news conference in Jefferson Parish that is set to start any minute. You can watch that on our website or on our smartphone app. See you back here at 10.